All right, well, that took a lot of doing. I need to figure out a lot of stuff with this streaming software. I need to figure out a lot of stuff. Hey, Josiah. Yeah, ridiculously hot day today. Yeah, sorry about getting the stream all screwed up. I stream from an iPad, and the iPad streaming software has never been very solid. Um, so this is a Filarmonica 13, which is a 6/8 Filarmonica. This is the when you get into collecting Filarmonicas, what you want are a Generation 1, which were made in the early like 1920s up through I might be wrong about the beginning dates, but up into the 50s, and then the Generation 2s were made. Hang on here. The Generations 2s were made up into the 70s, or maybe even 80s, and then the company started having problems, and the Jose. What was his last name? What was his name? Montserrat Poo. They stopped putting his name on the blades, and that became his kids. One or two of his kids started running the company, and they kept making razors, but the quality of the razors became more and more spotty. This is a Generation 3 Filarmonica 13, and I managed to get one of the really good ones, because this one has always been pretty astounding. I'm Hi there, Rip Van Winkle. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a knife sharpener, so my razor honing style is unorthodox, and even the way I use coticles is a little bit unorthodox. I don't typically do the finger dip. I kind of do it. I've done enough sharpening that I do it by feel, So the reason I'm mentioning that is copying me would, I'm probably not the best person to copy. Um, but the fingertip method works well. What's good about that is, and I used to do it. What's good about it is it allows you to uh, decrease the effectiveness of the slurry at a known rate. Um, with coticles, the entire slurry is made up of the same size particles as the stone, and so if the stone is more of a finishing stone, uh, then you're going to get increased abrasion, increased cutting at the edge by the density of the slurry that you have. So a more dense slurry, the more cutting. Coticles are slow, and so you generally need to take advantage of every advantage that you can get, especially if you're starting with a dull razor. Now this razor is not dull. It had an edge on it, but I looked at my records and I haven't sharpened this razor since 2023, so that's unusual for me. I'm doing the finger method to be a little bit more of an example than I normally am. Let me catch up here. Well, Josiah, I really appreciate that comment. Uh, and Trunker, I appreciate that comment too. Uh, I think the principles work. If there's no, I mean, there are guys that we all know who are very, very fast, but speed doesn't necessarily, speed comes with familiarity. And if you work your way up by doing this by feel, um, you have the best of all worlds. Counting is good if what you want to do is the same amount of work on each side of the razor, but if the razor is off to begin with, then all you're doing is compounding whatever asymmetry is in the razor. If you learn to hone by feel and all the other inputs that you have, I mean, you notice the slurry is just popping over the edge. In fact, I've been delinquent here. Then you can take care of everything. You don't have to depend upon some arbitrary method. You're dealing directly with how the razor responds on the stone. So that's what I always promote. It's a little harder to get into, but I think most of us as humans have much better senses than we realize, and this is one way to really show yourself, because this is, what am I doing? I'm just dragging something back and forth across a stone, and it is surprising how much I feel, and I'm completely convinced that anybody who does this enough, and you don't have to do this for 15 years. If you do it enough, you're going to get the feel. I think you're going to get it on the first try too. You're going to refine that feel, the more familiar you become with it. Okay, better see. Yeah, I do too. And again, a lot of that, in addition to this angle, that comes from having to be very careful about creating a bevel. With a knife, with a knife, I'm setting the angle. I'm not using the spine. And with razors, I'm still, I mean, the spine is on the stone, but my focus is still on the edge. What I tell everybody is, at first, when you're first starting this, use only enough pressure so that you can feel the edge. Don't worry about trying to improve to speed the process up by using more pressure. Later, when you've done a number of knives, you'll find that you will naturally know when to increase pressure and when to reduce it, because you'll get the idea of the feel of that edge. Like right now, that edge is right into the stone. I can feel, as I go slowly here, I can feel that edge from heel to toe right into the stone, and also I can see that in the highly diluted slurry that I now have. Okay, and my intention is to really push this edge. I don't think I've used oil on this stone before. In fact, this is a La Veinette, and I have another La Veinette, and I don't think I've used oil on either stone. But I intend to fully push this one. See how far I can take it. Let's see where we are. Well, we are pushing into the cloud right now. There's no resistance, absolutely no resistance. Maybe a little bit at the heel. I think I'll work a little bit at the heel. This is something that I was talking to somebody, or not talking, but interacting with somebody on Discord who was saying he didn't care for a particular stone of his because he thought it was too narrow. And he's not alone. There are a lot of people who want a stone that they can get the whole razor or sometimes even knife if it's a small knife. But because I do knives mostly, the knife almost never fits on the stone. So it's very common for me to sort of maximize the blade length across the stone, and also to work on sections of the blade, and then blend them together. And if you do that, then a stone that's too narrow, which was what, again, his complaint was, he said his stone was too narrow. And a lot of people, especially those who sort of do this, if you sharpen like this, there's no reason you can't use a narrow stone. There's no reason you can't. You can absolutely work sections by going straight up and down, but for whatever reason, I don't know, but it seems as if a lot of those people want to have a stone that fits the whole blade. What I found in ridiculous numbers of microscope studies is that the heel and toe on my edges was always better than the center of the blade. And what I realized was, you see what I'm doing now, I'm actually putting some pressure at the center of the blade with my left hand, and I was amazed at how much it improved. Now again, I'm looking at ridiculous magnification, but it really improved the quality of the edge at the center when I started doing this. So that all that does is harken back to the idea of treating the edge in sections, thinking about not doing the whole thing at once, but thinking about each part of the edge having to come together to be one. All right, I'm really doing a lot of this. Let's see here. Oh, thank you, Rip. I'll just. Great name, by the way. Yeah, yeah. Finger pressure. You can get away. Finger pressure to get feedback is the key, and you don't need a lot of it, especially at this stage. Let's see how we did. Okay, we're back into the. We're fully into the. We're pushing into the cloud now. So I could easily. Um, strop this and use it, but of course I'm not going to do that. Let me get another microfiber towel here. Nice thing about microfiber towels, I'm about to use oil, and so I want to get all the water off, but I'd prefer not to have a lot of lint left over on the stone, and a microfiber won't leave any lint, which is a nice feature. I see one of the real advantages of this online YouTube thing, which is quite cumbersome, really, to have a group online on YouTube. But what's nice about it is you learn from each other. I had never used oil on a coticule before. I have used oil before, but not on a coticule. And Eric was saying, you should do it, and he showed, him doing it. So I gave it a try. I actually don't have any honing oil anymore. I used to have it, but I bought some baby oil. This is what I just put on here, the very inexpensive baby oil. Baby oil is a light oil. I have purchased honing oils. Those tend to be a little heavier, and they also tend to not be, they tend to be targeted at silicon carbide stones. Way back before time started, my father taught me to hone tools and knives, pocket knives primarily, or hunting knives. He taught me to hone on what we called an oil stone, which I later learned was silicon carbide. Was a silicon carbide stone, and I sucked at it. I was really bad at it, and it was grimy. It was a mess. I kept mine for a long time, hated using it, never got good edges, because I really wasn't thinking about what I was doing. I was just trying to get through it. I then transferred to doing jigs. I did jigs, guided systems, Lansky, and later Edge Pro. I did those for a long time. They were my go-to for a long time. You can get good edges, very good edges, with a guided system. And I only started doing water stones, water stones. I started that in about 2010, maybe 2009. I don't remember exactly. I remember thinking it was. I saw something about it and thought, "Oh, this is pretty cool. I wonder if I can do it." And turns out, like most people, I was able to do it. I also have made every mistake possible. That's the way I learn. see, you better catch up. Hello, Dennis. Any benefit to taping the spine versus not taping? So the benefit of taping the spine is that you won't wear the spine. The other benefit is that it gets the focus of the honing more onto the apex and less onto the bevel part of the edge. The downside is that these razors weren't designed. A straight razor was not designed to be used with tape. Electrical tape was invented in the 1940s by the Minnesota Mining and Manufacturing Company, 3M. And razors, this design pre-existed that invention by over 100 years. So the internet in particular, and interest in vintage razors in particular, has popularized the use of tape. It's not the end of the world if you want your spine to look great. It's fine. You can use tape. You change the geometry of your razor every time you use tape. You change the geometry of the razor when you do what I'm doing. But the razor shortens every time you sharpen it. If you don't use tape, then the wear that you put on the spine helps to keep the spine width to blade width ratio as close to the same as possible. I mean, it's not going to be the same. Generally the blade's going to shorten more than the spine narrows. But you keep this angle close to its maximum throughout the life of the razor if you allow the spine to wear. Now here's a razor that I've been honing now for way too long, and you can barely see. I think there's your spine wear. So how bad is that? You know, this is a razor that was made in the 1970s. So, you know, how bad is that? And so, you know, it's a judgment that you can make. A lot of people, in fact, most, especially on YouTube, and especially those who are restoring razors, they will always use tape. But it's suboptimal. And the counter argument to that is wearing the spine when you have a razor that you paid a lot of money for and you like the looks of. The argument is, well, you know, I'm willing to take that slight widening of bevel angle each time I hone the razor because I'm not going to hone it very much. That's an absolutely valid argument. So that's more than you ever wanted to know. But I hope that helps. Yeah, well, that's right, Josiah. In the case of like wedges in particular, in the case of wedges, and wedges most wedge razors were made, you know, over 150 years ago. So in the case there, you have so much wear on the spine that pretty much tape is always required. But for your general vintage razor or new razor, it's a choice. You're welcome, Dennis. All right, so I'm really just touching up here on the heel again. I need to really do a good test. So we're going to get out some soapy water. Wash this off. I think I'm done with this one. So to finish up, I, on my own razors, don't use tape, except for a couple of wedges that I have, which there's no choice. I have to use tape because they're so they're so old and the spines have worn so much that if I don't use tape, then I actually will be I'll be sharpening on the blade. I'll be wearing on the blade. So I have to use tape on those. But in general, the majority of my razors are either full hollow, half hollow, quarter hollow, some form of hollow. And on all of those, I don't use tape. And as you can see, as I showed you before, let's see if we can get that to focus. There isn't that much wear. This is an old razor. It was well cared for before I got it. You just saw how I cared for it. If you sharpen with care, you're using the razor the way it was designed to be used. So again, that's more information than you need, but that's what I know about it. Let's see here. Yeah, well, that's what I think too, Rip. Hello, Mr. Now. Love that. Love Apocalypse Now. Love your name there. Again, there's no magic to this. I always use slurry on everything. Slurry. I didn't use slurry when I was using this oil. I need to test this thing. Wow. Here, sorry about that. Look at that. That is just absolutely. It's just falling in. So that is super, super sharp. And I'll look at it. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out a way to use the microscope on a live stream, but I'll post a microscope photo or video of this razor when I go to test shave it. The only thing I'm going to do to it is to strop it. It'll get some stropping on linen, probably. With coticules, I tend to strop more, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So I'll probably do something like 40 laps on linen, and then maybe 80 laps on leather, and then I'll test it. With coticules tend to have large garnets. The garnets vary in size, of course, because it's a natural stone, but they tend to be large, and they're not. And that causes, when you look at the scratch pattern of a coticle, you can see that. You'll see scratches of widely varying sizes. And that pattern extends all the way to the apex. And so you have an apex that's very sharp, but also very toothy. And so the reason I strop a lot with coticules is to round off, maybe even break off and round off the tiny teeth that are left over. I'm over here washing the oil off this coticle. Let's see here. Yeah, thanks, Josiah. Huh. Um, well, well, ballastol and water. Yeah, water and oil certainly don't mix. Um, uh, so generally speaking, if your edge isn't good, um, coming off the finish, whatever finish phase that you use, this is even true on synthetics. Um, if it isn't good, then generally, for me, if my edge isn't good coming off a finished stone, then what I do is I go back to a stage or two in the progression, and then I just push the edge as far as I can. So let's talk synthetic stones. If the edge isn't really good coming off 12K, um, then I'll go back to 8K and push the hell out of the edge to where it should actually perform on the peanut test, like a shaving edge, you know, a soundless test. Um, the and so then I'll go up. So I'll push the edge on a higher abrasive stone, and then go back to the finished stone and see if I can get an edge really finished on that. Sometimes sometimes if you can't get an edge that way, you really need to look at the quality of the steel. You can overhone. Some steels break down as the edge gets refined. So generally that's a tempering issue, and it happens. And so you simply have to, you have to look at it on, you don't have to have a microscope like mine, but a 50x, a 25 or 50x loop will tell you if you finished and that edge isn't smooth, and you've been careful, then it may be an issue with the steel. What refinement would you gain if you finish this on black arc? Not much refinement. A black arc will change the texture of the apex. This apex is really sharp. This is easily shaving sharp as is, off of oil. It got a little bit sharper off the oil than directly off the stone, which is what I expect. The other thing with black arc is that the black arc will cut away a lot of those little tiny teeth that, again, you're going to see them on my video. Sorry, on my microscope photographs, but you wouldn't necessarily see them too well with something like a 50x loop. 50x loop, maybe 25x loop. You wouldn't see them that well. So those teeth will get taken off by the Arkansas, and the scratch pattern will get modified with the Arkansas scratch pattern, which again, surprisingly, shows a large variation in abrasive size. Not as large typically as a coticule. And the result from a feel perspective is that a black Arkansas edge feels crisper. It just feels the edges are quite comfortable, and a little bit more pronounced on the skin. I'm a huge fan of following a coticule with a black arc. Again, because of Eric. Because of Eric, I started really finishing from coticules a lot more. So let's see what else we have here. We're at about 43 minutes, I think. Again, I don't know how I'm doing with this software. I've got to figure this out. Anyway, I think I'm going to end it here because I'm done with this razor. Thanks for those of you who did show up. I really appreciate that. And I will feel free to post comments or whatever, and I'll try to answer them. So I'm gonna end this. Thanks very much for showing up, and I'll see you in another live or